Right, buckling is one of those stream of consciousness things. I spent yesterday looking around online to see what everybody thought about this. The reformers didn't really think that it went far enough. The left wing thought it was the most abhorrent thing ever. But the amount of information that was spreading online that wasn't true was also staggering. I got into an argument with a left wing commentator who was insisting that Labour were trying to remove Article 8 of the ECHR altogether, which they weren't going to do. They're literally talking about amending it. And more than that, they're not just doing it unilaterally, they're doing it in collaboration with international partners. But seemingly, the left wing agitators felt that the removal of Article 8, which wasn't going to happen anyway, was all tied into digital ID, and this was all part of some master plan to control us. And it's like there's no nuance in this conversation anymore. I watched Zach Polanski on Newsnight arguing with Layla, the reform councillor, and whilst I could identify really clearly who their voter base was by the way they were talking, again, I just feel like everybody's missing some really basic points here. And I do feel that Shabana Mahmood captured some of those points yesterday. I think we're in a political existential crisis. The boats, the small boats, are not a crisis. It's 4% of illegal immigration that's coming over in the boats. It's nothing. But thanks to the media, thanks to reform, thanks to the Tories, this has been blown up into such a big issue that we can't just make it okay by explaining that it's just 4% and not all the 4% are people that are going to do terrible things in this country. And it feels like there's a large percentage of the people don't really see what is going on in the country right now. And I was struck by the Home Secretary making this statement yesterday in the Commons, because certainly my lived experience right now is I have more and more friends that don't identify as white telling me about racist incidents. I also have more and more LGBT friends telling me about homophobic incidents. It feels like we left the 1970s genie of racism and homophobia out of the bottle. And actually we can't put it back away until we solve some of the problems that have created the space, I guess, for the hate mongers to thrive. But I was also struck how little has been spoken about the fact that the government said that they're going to provide safe and legal routes so that asylum seekers can finally, once again, apply for asylum in the UK. But I'm not seeing that headline anywhere. And to me, that seems like quite major news. I think Reform have handled this brilliantly, because what they've done is they've tried to say that Labour are using the language of reform. Whereas if you actually listen to what was said, they weren't at all. They weren't demonising people in their language. They were just saying that they had to give us border security, which was on their manifesto. Like, there's loads about it I'm not very keen on. I don't think somebody should have to wait 20 years to find out whether they become a resident if they got refugee status here. But again, there's something about they can go down a different pathway so they don't have to wait 20 years. But I'm not very clear on that detail myself. But I'm just saying there seems to be more to it than just they have to wait 20 years. But there's also a reality that for a large percentage of the electorate that have been fed the lies and the fear about what these migrants are doing, and for that large percentage of the electorate to think that it's more than 4% coming across on the small boats, it has disintegrated society a little bit. Not the people coming over on the boats, but how our media have promoted those people coming over on the boats, as they've presented them as the invaders, which we know is bollocks. But that is what people are fearful of. And it is a government's job to actually listen to what the electorate are saying. But it's also true, isn't it, that there needs to be bigger conversations and a better education here. Because that aside, those people coming over on the boats are not the reason why we haven't got enough houses. It's not the reason why you can't get a GP appointment. It's not the reason why there's a cost of living crisis. And both narratives have to be told at the same time. Will stopping the boat stop people being racist? No, it won't. But I guess it'll take the toxicity out of it. And it's that toxicity that seems to me to be impacting so many people right now. The government has a responsibility to protect the nation. And if they don't get this right, then we will be looking at a reform government. And that should terrify everybody, because that is going to make a lot of people's lives so much worse. And the people who right now think that it's the boat people, for want of a better term, that are creating all the problems in the UK, they're going to be devastated when they get in to discover that reform can't stop the boats, but also reform can't make their lives better. Farage has caused this country so much economic harm as it is, and has divided the country. He divided it back in 2016 when he was fighting for Brexit. Things like Elon Musk giving a platform to people like Tommy Robinson. All of these things are filtering into mainstream news. People are feeling emboldened to use horrible language. And where once you just see people using that online, it's been normalised to such a degree they're using it offline as well. I would be more worried about Labour not taking strong action, because I think then we really could be in a place of civil unrest. Of course, education is always the answer, and explaining to people all of this in a much more nuanced way is preferable. But it's not very realistic in the world that we live right now. I thought the Home Secretary put up a very persuasive argument for her reasons for doing it and why she felt she had no choice but to do it. I understand why the right sort of liked it a little bit, but are also a bit anxious, because if she nails it, then they're all fucked. And I understand why the left really don't like it, because they want everybody to be better educated and to understand things. But I don't think that's very realistic in the world that we live right now. So I think Labour are right to try and sort out this political nightmare that has already gone on for far too long. And when that's sorted, and with safe and legal routes provided for asylum seekers, maybe we can get humanity back to where it was before COVID and before all of this shit kicked off. Anyway, just my thoughts, as you were.